All right. Now, welcome all students to this interactive session of for all ENT students. Now, if you have any doubt, we can discuss it at the end of this lecture. Okay. Now, today I will try to cover one very important aspect of your otorhinolaryngology. As you all know, that otitis media is something from which you can get a lot of questions, short notes, long case, long questions, everything. So you have to get a grasp of otitis media chapter, which includes acute suppurative otitis media, chronic suppurative otitis media, and its complications with the operative management. The management complete. Okay. So coming to the first slide. So what is ASM? Now I know many of you have already studied it. It is like a very common thing right now. You have been studying it quite many times, but I will just brush over the important aspects. Sometimes what happens, you have read it, you have gone through it, but you have not focused on the important point, because of which when you are answering, you have written a page, but you have not written the most important thing. So that is why, to start with the definition of ASOM, ASOM is defined as suppurative infection involving the mucosal lining of middle ear cleft. So whenever you are studying any definition, try to remember the important points and try to read in between those lines. A definition is hardly, you can say, 2 lines or 3 lines definition, but the important aspect, like here suppurative word is very important. Whenever we say a case of ASOM or CSOM, the presence of suppuration is extremely important. So a suppurative infection, if it is due to a virus, a bacteria, a fungus, anything, if there is suppuration, if there is a microorganism, then you will call it as ASOM. If it is a non-suppurative, that means if there is a sterile fluid within the middle ear, that will not come under suppurative otitis media or ASOM or CSOM. It will not come. Okay, even though the patient may have pain, the patient may have discharge, but if it is a sterile fluid, it is not ASOM or CSOM. So first is suppurative infection. Second is mucosal lining. The middle ear and the middle ear cleft, that whole thing is lined by mucosa. So that infection has to involve that mucosal lining of entire middle ear cleft. I hope you know what is middle ear cleft. But for those who are still in doubt, middle ear cleft is the entire middle ear space, which includes the mesotympanum, epitympanum and hypotympanum. So the entire middle ear space with the eustachian tube on one side and the adytus with the antrum, that is the mastoid cavity. So that whole thing is known as middle ear cleft. So when we say otitis media, do not restrict your thinking to the middle ear only. It is also the eustachian tube infection, it is also infection of the mastoid, together is coming under otitis media. So now coming to the duration, when we say a case of acute suppurative otitis media, it has to be something less than 3 weeks. Now in some books, this duration is written as 3 months. Okay, so there is a bit of controversy, but to remain safe, you can say any duration within 3 weeks or up to 3 months. Any duration within 3 months can be called as acute suppurative otitis media. The moment this infection persists beyond this period will be called as chronic suppurative otitis media. So what are the causes? How this infection begins in the middle ear? The cause can be first obstruction in the eustachian tube. Second is recurrent upper respiratory tract infections. So either a mechanical blocking of the eustachian tube, or eustachian tube is patent but infection is coming from the nasopharynx or oropharynx, infection directly, nasopharyngitis, and sometimes allergy. So all these are the route of spread, how the infection reaches the middle ear. What are the stages of air swim? So this is again, you have already studied it. So I will brush over the main headings. The stage of hyperemia, stage of exudation, suppuration and resolution. And to the extent to which this disease will progress in any patient will depend on three important factors. One is virulence of the organism, host immunity and adequacy of antibiotic therapy. So this is in general for all kind of infective conditions. So first is the stage of hyperemia. So hyperemia in general, the meaning of hyperemia. Hyperemia is congestion, redness. So hyperemia of the mucous membrane, and this redness is not just limited to the tympanic membrane. There is congestion all throughout. There is congestion in the middle ear mucosa. There is congestion in the mucosa lining the eustachian tube, congestion over the mucosa of the mastoid antrum. So that whole middle ear cleft is now congested, red. There is symptom of pain in the ear, high temperature and sense of fullness in the ear. The ear seems to be blocked. Why? Because there is mucosal edema, there is congestion, so there is mucosal edema. This mucosal edema will lead to swelling and it will lead to sense of oral fullness. This is the stage of hyperemia, and in this stage if the patient comes to a doctor and he receives proper treatment, then what happens? This is a stage of reversibility. Antibiotics given for the correct duration and dose can control the infection at this stage. So infection will not proceed to the next stage, or in other words, you can control this infection. So the patient will have symptoms: pain, fever, oral fullness. History of upper respiratory tract infection may be present along with it, and it will be a very short duration. 1 to 2 days he has come to the doctor. So in this stage, if you give antibiotics, it can be controlled. Next stage is the stage of exudation. Exudation is outpouring of fluid from the blood vessels of mucoperiosteum. So what happens? Basically, this infection is now, and the inflammation has proceeded. It has advanced. So this congestion has now lead to exudation of fluids within the middle ear, and now the middle ear is full with fluid, which is initially serous, but gradually it becomes infected with numerous organisms, various types. What are the organisms? We will come to it. So fluid is initially serous, later on it becomes super added with infection. The whole middle ear cavity is tense. So remember, now the middle ear cavity is a small restricted space filled with fluid. So it becomes very tensed, and since it cannot come out from anywhere, the only pliable, the only relaxed part is the tympanic membrane, which can move. Rest all part is bone. So the middle ear, the lateral part, which is the tympanic membrane, will bulge out. Eardrum starts to bulge, and these patients, again, now this is the stage where the patient has high grade fever. It is very painful, and since the middle ear is tensed, the pain is very severe, and these patients also have mastoid tenderness, because I told you again and again, I am telling you, the infection, when I say otitis media, it means mastoid cleft also. Okay. So suppuration. So the exudate present in the middle ear will now suppurate, that is, it will be a full-fledged suppurative infection, and this stage it is on the verge of the tympanic membrane is bulged to the maximum point. Now it will rupture, and this stage again you can treat it with antibiotics, but it can as well proceed to the next stage of resolution, where there is a rupture of the eardrum. So till there is rupture of the eardrum, there is severe pain the patient feels. The moment there is rupture and then the pus is released out, the pain subsides. Okay. Now discharge from the middle ear starts to flow out. This is known as lighthouse sign. This is very important. Lighthouse sign is discharge coming out from the middle ear out into the external canal, flowing out, and if you look into the ear at that point of time, you can see that the discharge is coming, but it is not a continuous flow of discharge. It appears that the discharge is coming on and off. it feels like just in a lighthouse. Do you all know what is a lighthouse? Lighthouse, if you have seen, or even if you have seen in television, it is located near the seashores, where amidst the sea, a tall the tower is there. On the top there is a light and it rotates. So on one particular point of time it will throw light, after some time again it will come and throw light. So this is mainly done for ships and all. So now this kind of phenomena where alternately you can see and again you cannot, again you can see, this is known as lighthouse sign. This happens in case of ASOM. Why? Because the pus that is coming out is coming in pulsations, and this pus is formed, quite a lot of amount is formed in the middle ear, from the mastoid, everywhere. Now the pus is, because now an exit point they have found, that membrane has ruptured, that pus will now gradually come out, and this coming out of the pus, and what, when you are seeing that alternate, you can see, and you can see it is coming as if it's coming in pulsations. This is known as lighthouse sign. And then another thing is mastoid reservoir. What happens? Because a profuse amount of pus is coming out, it is obvious that much amount of pus is not stored in the middle ear. It is also coming from there is some reservoir there. What is that reservoir? Mastoid. Mastoid has numerous air cells. Now within those air cells a lot of pus has accumulated. So that is a lot of amount of pus, and it is gradually coming out. So if you see a middle ear or an ear on examination, a lot of pus and constantly it's pouring out, that means the pus is coming from a reservoir, which is the mastoid. So that is known as mastoid reservoir phenomena. Fever by this time will gradually subside. Okay, and once the pus totally comes out, his fever will subside, his pain will reduce, clinically he will show a lot of improvement. Presence of middle ear infection for more than 2 weeks can cause complications. What happens? A patient with ASOM, now what I told you is the normal pathophysiology and occurrence. What will happen? If you give antibiotics at the correct point of time, this infection can get controlled. Sometimes patients do not turn up at the right time, or maybe due to low immunity, infection is not controlled. It persists, go on, the discharge will go on coming out for more than 2 weeks. Then it is obvious, that means the infection is not getting controlled. It has a tendency to spread to adjacent areas. That is the stage when complications occur. Now if just in the meanwhile I'll say one thing. If you have, because this is the first time I'm taking this class online, if you have any, if you're not audible, then you send me a message by the chat, or you can just WhatsApp me. Okay, Rahul, you can WhatsApp me in case you are having any problem, because I'm checking that in between. Okay, because it's very different feeling, not being able to see you students and teaching you. I somehow don't like it, but yes, we have to get used to this thing. So due to obstruction of normal drainage of middle ear, due to thickening of mucoperiosteum, what happens? This infection will tend to spread to adjacent areas. So remember, complications can also occur in ASOM. It is not just in CSOM. What are the main complications seen in ASOM? Coalescent mastoiditis and subperiosteal abscess. So once the infection within the bone, the mastoid, is not getting controlled, that will either, that pus, that huge amount of pus has to go out somewhere. So then that much amount of pus is not able to come out through that small extrauterine canal. What will happen? The outer lining, the mastoid cortex, the mucoperiosteum, everything gets involved. So there is something known as hyperemic decalcification. The word, on hearing it, appears to be complicated, but it's very simple. Hyperemic, so there is hyperemia. That hyperemia, increased vascularity, is actually eating out the bone. That is decalcification. So that bone, that mastoid cortex, due to excess congestion, due to excess blood supply to the bone, osteoclasts are released. They lead to osteolysis. They eat up the bone, which is known as decalcification. And then what happens? You know what is mastoid bone? The bone you feel just behind your pinna. So the pus was inside all the time. Now that the infection is not controlled, that pus will start to eat away the bone, and then it will eat away the mucoperiosteum, then the skin, and it will become a fistula. Okay. In children, people with low socioeconomic status who cannot go to hospitals, and in old people or with low immunity like chronic diabetes, these patients often have a tendency to present with subperiosteal abscess. So first there is squalus and mastoiditis. All the air cells squalus, that is, they join together. A lot of pus is formed, then it breaks the bone, it eats away the skin, and it presents as a ruptured open abscess. This is known as subperiosteal abscess, and then initially subperiosteal, then once the skin is breached, it will become an open fistula. Okay, what is fistula? Fistula is nothing but a tract which has opening to the outside. Okay, any viscera or any internal body structure opening to outside, that is known as a fistula. So that is about your ASOM. So in ASOM you should know the definition, clinical presentation, the stages, the two main signs, lighthouse sign and mastoid reservoir sign, and the complications. So complications are also possible in ASOM. Now coming to the next important topic, which is chronic suppurative otitis media. When many, even in this batch who have given the exams, you study a lot. The moment somebody asks you proper definition of ASOM, you tend to get confused. What will I say? What will I say? What is the correct way of saying? So whenever you are saying a definition, it has to be very precise. In definition, you are not supposed to tell history. You will not nobody will appreciate if you go on saying lines. So in CSOM, it is first a long-standing infection. The moment the word chronic comes, it is long-standing infection of a part or whole of the middle ear cleft again. So it may be a part or it may be the whole, but it is of the middle ear cleft and characterized by ear discharge and permanent perforation. This perforation can be in the form of an exact opening, or it can be in the form of a retraction pocket. This is definition of chronic suppurative otitis media. Okay. So it is defined as a chronic infection of the middle ear mucosa lining the middle ear cleft. Duration of infection should be more than 3 weeks. So in some books it is written more than 3 weeks, and in some books it's written more than 3 months. So any infection which has persisted more than 3 months can be, you can clear cut say it is a case of chronic suppurative otitis media. Middle ear cleft includes, we have already discussed, the eustachian tube, middle ear proper, and the mastoid air cells. So what are the types? This is again revision, you know it, but I am just telling you because this tubotympanic type and you all know, I know by this time you all know tubotympanic or the safe variety, atticoantral or the unsafe variety, right? All of you know this. What I want you to remember is this definition. This classification is the latest classification. This is the classification that we follow now. This is an old classification. Okay. This diagram is to explain you the concept of middle ear cleft. Time and again I am saying middle ear cleft. If you remember this diagram is not given in Dhingra, it's from another book. This diagram very nicely illustrates the concept of middle ear cleft. This is the middle ear, mastoid air cells. This is the eustachian tube. So you can see very easily how the infections, any infection in the sinus, any infection in the adenoids, any infection in the tonsils can easily via the eustachian tube reach the middle ear. Similarly, infections in the mastoiditis, so it's a one unit. That is why ear, nose, throat. Nose is all this. Throat is the nasopharynx, tonsils. This is throat. Okay. Oropharynx is a part of throat. So ear, nose and throat, and that is the reason this subject is together. ear, nose, otorhinolaryngology. Now, aticoantral disease, and this, can you see an oblique line passing through the middle ear? Anything which is above, in front of this line is the tubotympanic variety, which is rather you can say antero-inferior part, and the posterior-superior part. Just a minute. आप उन्होंने तो बोला होगा. एक सेकेंड, एक बार पूछ लीजिए. Just a minute. Okay. So I hope all of you can now see the slide. Around 10 to 12 slides have already passed by. What I'll do is I'll try to just rapidly I'll go through these slides so that you just can connect. You have already heard what I've said, so it was nothing but the definition, okay, of suppurative infection. Now second is the pathophysiology, the causes. These are the stages. Now in stages, the first stage is stage of hyperemia. Then this is the stage of exudation. You can see, you can compare it. The first, only the membrane and the middle mucosa is congested, but in this stage there is a lot of pus formation to an extent that the tympanic membrane is getting bulged out, and at the point of maximum suppuration, it is this point where in the next stage it will rupture. Okay, stage of suppuration, and finally stage of resolution. So in this stage the membrane is ruptured, the materials come out, the patient is relieved of his ear pain. This is the lighthouse sign I was talking about, discharge coming out from the middle ear, continuous flow of discharge, and there is due to a mastoid reservoir phenomena. Complications can occur here as well. The complications mainly are coalescent mastoiditis, subperiosteal abscess. Then coming to CSOM, long-standing infection of whole or part of the middle ear cleft characterized by ear discharge and permanent defect in the tympanic membrane, which can be a perforation, which can be a retraction pocket. This CSOM is defined as chronic infection of middle ear mucosa lining the middle ear cleft. Duration can be 3 weeks, more than 3 weeks to more than 3 months. Anything beyond 3 months is definitely a case of chronic suppurative otitis media, and this is the kind of tympanic membrane that we get to see in case of chronic CSOM. CSOM, you can see a small perforation here. If you just focus on this perforation, it will look like, okay, it may be even in ASOM. But if you look at the entire tympanic membrane, then you can see that there is something in the attic region as well. This attic region, can you see a reddish structure? This is known as granulation tissue. Presence of granulation tissue in case of middle ear infection is definitely indicating towards chronic suppurative otitis media, that too unsafe variety. We'll come to it later. What are the two varieties? So this is the two types, tubotympanic and aticoantral. This is where we were discussing. Okay, till this slide we had come. So now this diagram is very important. This diagram is showing how anatomically we have classified the entire middle ear cleft into aticoantral and tubotympanic. Why is it that tubotympanic becomes safe? Why is it that aticoantral becomes unsafe? So near, both the areas are adjacent to each other, but still any disease occurring in this part is, we call them safe. Any disease occurring here becomes unsafe. How is it possible? Okay, if you remember this diagram, you will remember the parts of middle ear cleft, which are the entire middle ear cavity, including the mesotympanum, epitympanum or attic, hypotympanum, eustachian tube, here the antrum and the adytus. This whole thing, if you divide by an oblique line, dividing this compartment into antero-inferior and posterior-superior parts, this is the tubotympanic variety. Why tubo and tympanic? Tubo is coming from the word tube. Tympanic is the tympanic cavity. Similarly, aticoantral, why? Mainly the attic part and the antrum. So this is unsafe and this is safe. Why? We'll come to it later. So this is what I was telling you. The alternative classification is actually the latest classification that we follow right now. This classification, if you are asked what are the varieties of CSOM, You can say tubotympanic and atticoantral, but another way of saying, and rather more scientific way of saying, is mucosal variety and squamosal variety. Mucosal variety is nothing but the tubotympanic type. Squamosal variety is the atticoantral type. If you are not getting the audio or the slides at any point of time, you just inform me, okay? Now, mucosal variety is divided into three parts: active CSOM, inactive CSOM, and healed CSOM. This is very important. Active means there is active discharge coming out from the middle ear. That discharge may be less in amount, so that it is within the cavity or in the external canal, or it is profuse, that is flowing out. But whatever it is, there is active discharge. Inactive discharge means there is a perforation, there is a defect in the tympanic membrane, but it is dry. The ear is dry. What is the significance of inactive stage? Inactive stage means the middle ear mucosa right now is not infected. The middle ear mucosa is dry, so that means presently there is no active infection, but there has been an infection in the past which has left a sequelae. The sequelae is a permanent perforation in the tympanic membrane. And third is healed otitis media, otherwise known as adhesive otitis media. This is the reason why we say that this definition or this classification is more scientific. Adhesive otitis media is nothing but a case of recurrent otitis media occurring in a patient to such an extent that the middle ear mucosa has undergone severe changes, and the middle ear, the tympanic membrane has undergone retraction. It has retracted to such a great extent that there has been adhesive or fibrous bands within the middle ear, and the tympanic membrane is almost plastered over the bone, over the medial wall of the middle ear. That is also considered to be a part or a case of CSOM. So it is a case of CSOM. The patient was having a chronic infection of the middle ear, and the tympanic membrane on repeated attacks, now it has thinned out and it has almost plastered over the medial wall of the middle ear. This is the three conditions including under mucosal variety of CSOM. What are the squamosal variety? Squamosal variety, first will be either a retraction pocket, second will be an active discharge. So just like mucosal variety, there is an active stage and an inactive stage. Similarly, in squamosal also you have active stage where there is a continuous discharge, or an inactive stage, otherwise in the form of a retraction pocket. Now you would like to know why is the name given as mucosal variety and squamosal variety. Mucosal variety, we say because it is nothing but the mucosal lining of the middle ear cleft here. The entire mucosal lining of this part is not uniform throughout. Okay, mucosal lining of the meso and the hypotympanum is different. Mucosal lining of eustachian tube is different. What do you expect the lining of eustachian tube and the protympanum? Protympanum is what? The part adjacent to the eustachian tube opening. This is the protympanum region. So this is obviously lined by a ciliated columnar epithelium. Attic is lined by flattened epithelium. So this lining epithelium goes a long way in deciding the nature of CSOM that the patient is going to develop. A patient who develops any infection in this part, it will be more of a mucosal proliferation. There will be increased goblet cells, more of discharge. But a patient who gets infection in this part, what will happen? Here you see the epithelium is flattened epithelium. This epithelium on constant infection becomes, it is lined by keratinized epithelium. So here keratinization occurs, and if it's a chronic infection of this region, there will be accumulation of squamous keratinized epithelium here, and that is the reason this portion becomes more and more unsafe. Why we call it as unsafe? Why we call it as safe? Why we call it as mucosal? Because the mucosal lining of this particular area is different. It is a good one. It will only undergo hypertrophy and it will produce more and more of mucus. That's it. At the most, there is a perforation in the tympanic membrane. You repair it, the patient is cured. But what happens here? Here the lining epithelium itself is not a good one. It is a one which can keratinize. Normally in a healthy individual, it's fine. But the moment a person tends to get repeated infections in these parts, this particular area has a tendency of accumulation of keratin debris. Gradually layers and layers of keratin debris can form here, and that is what is known as, yes, you all know it, it is known as cholesteatoma. Cholesteatoma is the most important reason atticoantral variety or squamosal variety becomes unsafe. You can say cholesteatoma is like, it is not, but it is like a cancer of ear. It is not. What I am trying to tell you is, it is that bad thing in the ear. If cholesteatoma happens, you should say that, okay, this is unsafe, because all bad things can happen in this ear. There can be bone necrosis. The disease will become recurrent. Even after you operate, there are chances that it can come back. The disease can spread to all adjacent areas. Why? Because cholesteatoma has tremendous bone eating property. So that is why it is unsafe. So first, coming to the safe variety, tubotympanic or mucosal variety. It is known as safe ear. It does not cause serious complications. Complications are always there, but life-threatening serious complications are very rare in tubotympanic. Infection is limited to anterior-inferior part of middle ear cleft. So I told you, if you remember that diagram, you can always write as many points on mucosal or squamosal variety. And it is associated with central perforation. Each and every word is important. It is safe. It will not cause any life-threatening complications. Infection is limited to the anterior-inferior part. If we say the anterior part and the inferior part, that means the part which is close to the protympanum and associated with central perforation. So what is the meaning of central perforation? Central perforation means perforation, well, obviously in the center of the tympanic membrane, and the perforation is lined by intact pars tensa on all sides. That is known as a central perforation. Please remember the definition. Central perforation is perforation seen in the pars tensa surrounded by intact pars tensa on all sides. On 360 degree around the perforation, there is an intact tympanic membrane remnant. Then it is a central perforation. Any perforation in pars flaccida is never a central perforation. The moment you feel the perforation is in pars flaccida, gone. Even if it's a small perforation, it is not a central perforation. So the first, the perforation has to be in pars tensa. Second, it has to be surrounded by intact remnant of pars tensa on all sides. Why is tubotympanic disease safe? There is no risk of bone erosion. Not known to cause intracranial or life-threatening complications. Discharge from middle ear flows freely through the perforation. So there is a perforation and discharge can easily come out every time it is formed. That is the reason complications do not develop. Complications will develop only when that discharge is not able to come out and it's going to other places. Usually the perforation of pars tensa is surrounded by a rim of intact drum, that is what is known as central perforation. And the annulus is, obviously if you have an intact remnant, definitely the annulus on all sides is intact. What are the common, this is very important, what are the common organisms causing CSOM? Pseudomonas, E. coli, Bacillus. Gram-negative bacilli are commonly found in these conditions, and these organisms are actually not common in respiratory tract. Yes, you all know this. So they are commonly, they come from the skin of the external canal, okay, and then they enter into the middle ear. So here clinical features: profuse mucopurulent discharge. These terminologies are very important when you describe. So the patient, see, this safe variety of CSOM is commonly the case which you will be getting in your exams also. So how precisely and how technically correct you are will be determined by these words. A lot of discharge, no. Profuse discharge. Mucopurulent in nature. So what do you mean by mucopurulent? Any discharge which is initially was watery and later became yellowish in color. So it has a component of both mucoid and later on suppurative infection, superadded infection by bacteria will lead to purulence. So the mucopurulent discharge. Second, it is not foul smelling, very important. This whenever that attack of CSOM will happen in safe variety, there will be profuse discharge and then the episode will heal by 1 or 2 weeks. Again the patient will have a second attack again after 2-3 months, but at that point of time that episode will heal. Ossicular chain, the 3 ossicles seen within the middle ear, malleus, incus and stapes. These 3 ossicles are usually not involved in this condition. What is the meaning of involved? How can get the involved? Constant infection and pus accumulation can lead to erosion of the ossicles by a process which we have already discussed, hyperemic decalcification. So constant infection in the middle ear, even though there is a lot of pus, there is a lot of infection, there is pus coming out, still the ossicles are not damaged. Because the ossicles are not damaged, patient do not have a major hearing loss. Okay, patients usually have a hearing loss within the range of 30 to 40 decibel. That much of hearing loss is because of perforation in the tympanic membrane, purulent discharge occluding the sternocleidomastoid canal. So that much is the problem, and so obviously when you correct it, you repair the tympanic membrane, and obviously once it is repaired there is no discharge, so the hearing improvement is also very good. They get almost near normal, even if not preoperative, but almost near normal tympanic membrane hearing is restored. These patients may complain, though it is a chronic one. So you all know acute conditions are painful and chronic ones are usually painless or less painful. But in CSOM it may be painful because of otitis externa. That pus is coming out through the external canal, so it's also infecting that skin lining the external canal. So that may be the reason the patient may develop sometimes pain in the ear. So stages of tubotympanic disease. Acute stage, inactive, quiescent and healed stage. So acute stage, these words itself, if you know the meaning, you know what the stages are going to tell. So acute stage, the ear is actively discharging, middle ear mucosa is hypertrophied, congested, mucopurulent, profuse discharge is coming out, but please remember the discharge is not foul smelling here. In inactive stage, what happens? I told you, whenever that attack comes, you give antibiotics, it will heal in 5 to 6 days. Even if you don't give antibiotics, patient has good immunity, it will heal in 2 to 3 weeks. And then the eardrum will be dry. The ear will be dry. Yes, there will be a permanent perforation in the pars tensa. That is important. But the eardrum, the ear as such is dry, so there is no discharge. So they have these patients, these kind of patients will have intermittent episodes of discharge. Sometimes they'll be good, sometimes they'll have discharge. Again they'll be good for a few weeks, again they'll have discharge. This is the pattern. Annulus. Annulus is what? That rim of pars tensa. That is intact. And middle ear mucosa is normal and healthy. Once the ear is dry, that time if you see the perforation, you can see the middle ear mucosa through that perforation, and the middle ear mucosa appears normal and healthy. What is the meaning of quiescent stage? There is a perforation of eardrum, middle ear is dry, but middle ear mucosa may be normal or hypertrophied. So what is the difference? Now you will say, what is the difference between inactive and quiescent? Inactive matlab total, there is no subclinical bacterial activity also, it's totally dry. But in quiescent what happens? Subclinically there is a low dose, low grade inflammation which is going on, due to which the mucosa is slightly edematous, but there is no active infection or superadded infection, because of which no profuse discharge is there. And this stage is usually seen when the discharge has just stopped. If after that, if within a week if the patient comes and you see the ear, then you get to see this quiescent stage of CSOM. And then is the healed stage. So healed stage is nothing but when the ear has totally dried, that perforation which happened, the lining of that perforation is totally epithelialized. Okay, the membrane must have ruptured at some point of time. Then the healing process started. It was dry gradually over weeks to months. When it is dry for a significant amount of time, that perforation will also heal. And what is the meaning of healing? That line, it will not close, that perforation is permanent, but the margin of that perforation is now epithelialized. Once any margin is epithelialized means now that perforation will never close, it will remain like that. Okay, and ossicular chain in these conditions are invariably intact. So these are the 4 stages: active, inactive, quiescent and healed. 4 stages of CSOM, safe variety. Today we will discuss the safe variety. In the next class we will be discussing the unsafe variety. Now unsafe variety is again a huge topic. So please read that part with cholesteatoma and complications. You read that so that my class will be a revision class for you. And whatever doubts you have in that unsafe class CSOM, we can discuss it. So tuning fork test, Rini negative. So basically a patient with CSOM, safe variety, is expected to have a conductive hearing loss. So all features of conductive hearing loss you can mention here. Rini will be negative, Weber lateralized to deaf ear, and ABC is not reduced. What is ABC? Absolute bone conduction. So pure tone audiometry here will again show conductive hearing loss with mild to moderate degree, 30 to 40 decibel. If you see a patient with hearing loss more than 60 decibel, please remember this is a very important, this can actually come in MCQs and all. Hearing loss of more than 60 decibel indicates that the patient may have suffered an ossicular erosion. The ossicular chain, if that gets if there is an erosion of any of the ossicle, what will happen? The continuity of medius, incus and stapes is lost. Somewhere there is a break in the chain. Once this break in the chain is known as ossicular chain disruption, then the sound cannot effectively transfer. So if there is a small perforation, the hearing problem is not that much. The moment the ossicle is damaged, that very chain is lost, there is a break, then the patient develops 60 dB around, more than 60 dB of hearing loss, and which is significant. That time the patient may come to you reporting that he is suffering from a hearing loss, because 60 dB is a lot of hearing loss. He will have problems in his day-to-day life. And associated sensory neural hearing loss in CSO safe variety is very rare. The only situation where you can get SN hearing loss is in case of prolonged use of antibiotic ear drops. What happens, especially in the previous era, in the last decade and beyond, prior to that, people used to use a lot of ototoxic drops. Ototoxic drops, especially when patients use over the counter, they just go to the medicine shop and they ask for an ear drop. The medicine shop, he doesn't even care what is the medicine, he'll just give an ear drop. So these ototoxic these ear drops, gentamicin, streptomycin, they are ototoxic to a great extent. Nowadays they have almost stopped or banned the production of these drugs, but prolonged, and remember these patients are chronic patients, they are not using it 1 or 2 times. Throughout their lifetime, maybe 4 to 5 times a year, they have been using it. So prolonged use of ototoxic drugs can lead to damage to the cochlear nerve. Nerve damage due to the toxins or due to that ototoxic drops can lead to sensory neural hearing loss. But CSOM per se, CSOM, safe variety of CSOM itself, very rarely can cause SN hearing loss. Okay. How will you manage a case of CSOM safe variety? First is, if the patient has come to you in active stage, you have to do oral toileting. You have to clean the middle ear and the external ear. You can do it manually in your OPD, or you can use it manually. When I say, I mean it, you have to use a cotton swab, oral swab. We call it as oral swab. You should see the instrument. That instrument is known as a Jobson-Horns probe. On that probe, you have to attach cotton. You have to know how to make an oral swab, and then you have to clean the ear. And second option is by suctioning. Then syringing of the effector. See, this acetic acid syringing is usually done if it's huge crust, dried crust is there, it's not coming out. But we usually do not use it. We just normal clean mopping is done. You apply topical antibiotics, and that crust will automatically soften out, and you can call him a week later and clean it again. And the eardrops that commonly are used nowadays are ciprofloxacin or ofloxacin. Ototoxic drugs are never be recommended by the doctor. Because remember, they are not going to, even if you ask the patient to use it for 7 days, in 7 days the drug is not ototoxic actually. But these patients will go on using it. They will not come to you later. Every time they get an ear discharge, they will use that same drop. So, antibiotic, topical antibiotic. What about the systemic drugs? Systemic antibiotics, antihistamines, nasal decongestants. Sometimes nasal decongestants we use. Why? Patients who are allergic, patients who have a tendency of developing sinusitis. Patient with chronic rhinosinusitis can develop infection in the middle ear. In those patients, it's very important to control the nasal mucosa as well. In these patients, we have to give nasal decongestants. See, I've just written the salient points. That's why you are getting to see only the point. Rhinitis medicamentosa I mentioned here only because right here it should be in your mind. Whenever you are administering any nasal decongestant, the over-the-counter drops that you get like oxymetazoline, xylometazoline, please advise to the patient that do not use it more than 7 to 10 days. Otherwise, the patient will be dependent on it. What about the surgical management? The most important surgical management, in one word if I say, it is tympanoplasty. Here there are 4 to 5 terms which you have to understand. See the pattern, how I taught you today. It is in your book, you won't find it in this pattern. It's basically not a theoretical lecture. Today what I am teaching you is a kind of, if you are being asked a question, this is how your approach should be, right from the clinical, right from pathophysiology till the management, how you should manage a case so that the patient is treated. The whole topic is completed here. So the surgical management actually comes, I think, in the last part of your book. But you have to remember, understand few things. What is a myringoplasty? What is a tympanoplasty? And then what is mastoidectomy? These 3 terms are very important. Myringoplasty is repair of the eardrum alone. That's it. Repair of the eardrum plus inspecting the entire middle ear cavity plus checking for the ossicles and correcting any ossicular defect if possible is known as tympanoplasty. So tympanoplasty is a big operation. Myringoplasty, you only repair the eardrum and you come out. Tympanoplasty requires a lot of other things, and there is a Wolstein's classification of tympanoplasty given in your book, and you all have to know it. All the 5 stages of tympanoplasty. In articuloentral we will discuss in the next class. Please, one thing is, you go through cholesteatoma and something about congenital and acquired, you read it and revise it the day before my next class, so that you can it will be a revision and you can incorporate more things into yourself. So I think we can stop now. It's 12:15 and I don't know if they have a next class now. So you have any doubts, you can always send me a message. I mean, here you can, I think there's an option of chatting. You guys are better acquainted with these things. So you have any, right now I don't see anything on the chat section. So you guys have any doubt here? Okay, so let's sign off. Thank you all and see you. Okay, see you in the next class. Okay, that will be next Monday, 11 o'clock. Okay then.